Good morning, class.
Morning.
So, in the last class, we had a discussion over physical properties of metals and non-metals. Now, today we will start chemical properties of metals. Now, one thing you have to do remember that metals are more reactive than non-metals. So, we have to read in our standard all the chemical properties of metals, but for the non-metals we have very less reactions. Got it? Now, the very first property of metal is reaction with oxygen. Okay? Metals react with oxygen to give us oxides. Right? Now, non-metal also have the same tendency. Means if non-metal also react with the oxygen, we have the non-metallic oxide. Right? Like if we react sodium with oxygen, we will have sodium oxide. Right? Now, when we react magnesium, this reaction you have seen in the lab, magnesium burning in oxygen. This gives us magnesium oxide. Right? So, in similar fashion, all the metals react with oxygen to give their respective oxides. Now, non-metals also have the same tendency. Means if non-metals react, like I am just taking the example of carbon here, you know the carbon is a non-metal. So whenever carbon react with oxygen, the product is carbon dioxide. So this is again an oxide. So definitely a question will arise in your mind that what is the difference between these two oxides, isn't it? What is the difference between metallic and non-metallic oxide? Definitely this question will arise in your mind कि मेटल भी रिएक्ट कर रहा है, नॉन मेटल भी रिएक्ट कर रहा है, दोनों अगर ऑक्सीजन के साथ रिएक्ट करके ऑक्साइड बनेगा, then what is the difference between these two oxides? The nature is the only difference. The nature of these metallic oxides are basic, and these non-metallic oxides are acidic in nature. Getting the point? Now, how you come to this point that these oxides are basic in nature? Suppose I am giving you a situation. Let's have magnesium oxide. We have magnesium given in the lab. We will burn it in the free candle flame, and we will have the ash of magnesium oxide. Right? Now, how can you conclude that magnesium oxide is basic in nature?
Magnesium oxide, first we take the sample of magnesium oxide and we will dilute it.
Very good.
Then we will test litmus test.
We'll perform the litmus test. Only thing which we have to say is not dilution. We have to make it aqueous. Getting the point? Dilution means we are decreasing the strength. Right? And making aqueous means we are mixing something with water. So what we do, since the ash of magnesium oxide that we get after the reaction, that is in the solid state, and that will not give us any test. So first we have to make it liquid. And how we can make it liquid? How we can make it a solution? We have to dissolve it in water. So we'll have the solution of magnesium oxide, and then we perform the litmus test. Now what changes do we observe if we put blue litmus in that solution? Blue litmus I am telling you.
No.
It is a basic.
No change.
No change. Very good. Now if we put red litmus paper, then
It will change to
it will change to blue. Okay, because we know in the bases, we have read about the indicators in the previous sections, previous chapters, that with the bases, litmus changes red to blue. So we can come to this point after doing the litmus test that these metallic oxides are basic in nature, right? And if we perform the same test for non-metallic oxide, we will have the conversion of litmus paper from blue to red, which shows it is acidic in nature. Getting the point? So all the metals react with oxygen to give us metallic oxide, respective metallic oxides, and these oxides are basic in nature. And all the non-metallic oxide, all the non-metals react with oxygen to give us non-metallic oxides, which are acidic in nature. Clear? Now, there is one more point which we have to do review, and that is about certain oxides of the metals, right? Here, some oxides, like if we take aluminium oxide or zinc oxide, these two metals, metallic oxide, these two metallic oxides are amphoteric in nature. These two are amphoteric oxides. Now, what do we mean by the term amphoteric substance?
Which so basic.
So both basic and acidic behavior are called amphoteric oxides.
Only one student says. Decipher?
This is the oxide which shows both acidic as well as basic behavior.
Very excellent. So the oxide or the substance, we can say the substance which shows the properties of acid as well as base are called as amphoteric substance. So these two oxides means when aluminium react with oxygen, we will have Al2O3, aluminium oxide, and when zinc react with oxygen, we will have zinc oxide. Clear? So these two oxides, Al2O3 and Zn, these two oxides are amphoteric in nature. Getting the point? They are not basic in nature. They are amphoteric. Now how can we come to that point that these are amphoteric? How can we come to that point? This is because when we react this aluminium oxide with an acid, then also it will give us salt and water. And when it reacts with a base, then also it will give us salt and water. Which proves that these two oxides have the property of acids as well as bases. Now we have a very good video related to this amphoteric nature of aluminium oxide. Let's have a look, students.
In order to learn about the chemical properties of metals, we need to understand how metals react with oxygen. Most metals react with oxygen to form metal oxides. For example, when aluminium is exposed to air, it becomes coated with a surface layer of aluminium oxide. This coating protects the aluminium from further corrosion. Anodizing is a simple process used to deposit a thick layer of oxide on the surface of a metal. It is
Now see here, one more term come here, that is anodizing. Now what do we mean by the term anodizing? It is a process used to deposit a thick layer of oxide on the surface of metal. Actually what happens, aluminium being a reactive metal, when it comes into contact with the environment, that is the oxygen, it forms a passive layer of aluminium oxide. Okay, and being that oxides, the layer of aluminium utensils, or we can say the articles of aluminium, that get protected from further oxidation. This process is called as anodizing. Now let's continue.
mostly used for aluminium and its alloys, though it can also be used for metals such as titanium and zinc. Anodizing aluminium produces much thicker aluminium oxide coatings than natural oxidation. This coating protects the aluminium from corrosion as well as wear and tear. Many modern buildings use anodized aluminium where the metal framework is exposed to oxygen and other elements.
Now again, here are the application of anodization. Okay, if the layer of aluminium oxide forms means no further oxidation will take place. Means that surface become protected from the oxidation or the corrosion. Corrosion you already know, that is a redox process, right? So this is some examples, like if we want to construct any building, any monument, any other thing, and we want to protect it from corrosion, what we do? Instead of pure aluminium, we have to use anodized aluminium, so that it cannot be face wear and tear or any problem related with the corrosion. Clear? And its quality will not also be degraded. Getting the point? Okay.
To see how the process works, we must first set up an electrolytic cell.
Yes, this process is to show how we can do anodization. Clear? This is for your extra knowledge student. This is not there in the course directly, but this is for your externals. You have to know this because you have to know the term anodization. So you should know how can we do the process of anodization. Means on industrial scale, how can you perform this? Okay, so let's see.
An electrolytic cell can be created using two electrodes in an electrolyte solution that conducts electrical energy. The anode is the positively charged electrode and the cathode is the negatively charged electrode. One way of anodizing aluminium is by making it the anode in an electrolytic cell along with the lead cathode. The electrolyte solution is dilute sulfuric acid. When the current flows, a thick film of aluminium oxide builds up on the surface of the aluminium anode.
So understood how this process will work. So this work on the principle of electrolysis. Now we have read about the term electrolysis, right? So we have to have this type of setup in which we have to take a positively charged anode and a negatively charged cathode. Here in the place of anode we took aluminium and here lead, and we just perform the electrolysis. And by this process anodization takes place. So how it can be conducted, that we don't have to study. We have to study that why aluminium is anodized. Okay, so that we can use it for the further building construction or the other purpose. Right? So this video is regarding the amphoteric nature of aluminium oxide, like how passive layer of aluminium oxide forms and how we can use it for our purpose. Clear? So this is all about the reaction with oxygen. Metal react with oxygen to give respective oxides which are basic in nature. Non-metals react with oxygen to give non-metallic oxides to give acidic oxides. Okay. Now only we have to do, remember, there are two oxides which are amphoteric in nature: aluminium oxide and zinc oxide. Is it clear? Now let's move towards the second property of metals, that is reaction with water. Reaction with water. Now metal react with water to give us hydroxide with the release of hydrogen. Some metals react with water to give respective oxide with the release of hydrogen. So simply we can write metal plus water. This will be formed metal oxides for some metals with the release of hydrogen gas. Again we will have certain metals on reaction with water. It gives metal hydroxides with the release of. Clear? Maximum metal react with water to give us metal hydroxide. Clear? Now have you read about reactivity series?
Yes,
Yes, miss.
So what do you mean by the reactivity series, Abhinav?
The decreasing order of the metals according to the reactivity.
Very good. Decreasing order of metals on the basis of their reactivity. So we have a reactivity series on the basis of which we can identify whether the given metal is more acidic, more reactive, less reactive, or metal having medium reactivity. Right? Now why I am discussing about this? Why I am discussing about this reactivity series? This is because different metals show different reactivity towards water. Some metal react with normal water, some metal react with hot water, and some react with even steam. Right? So different metals react differently with water. Now let's understand this reaction with the help of a very nice video which we are having here. See, here some metals are given: potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, iron and copper. Okay, all these are metals. Now we have to see their reactivity with water in different conditions. How potassium react with water, how this sodium react with water, how calcium react with water. So all this we have to see.
Different metals react differently with water. Some metals react violently with water, while others react more mildly. Few of the metals do not react at all. Click a metal to view its reaction.
Now see, some metal react with water, with normal water, cold water very violently. Violently means with the release of product, there will be release of heat also. And that type of reaction is called as exothermic reaction. Very good. So, some metal react with cold water to gives us product with the release of large amount of heat energy. Means that is highly exothermic. That's why we call those type of reaction as violent reaction. Okay? Some react with cold water, but the reaction is less violent. Right? Now let's just see how potassium react with water.
With water. When we gently add potassium to cold water, it reacts vigorously, releasing bubbles of hydrogen gas. This is an exothermic reaction during which a lot of energy is released. Potassium is more reactive than sodium, so it reacts faster and more violently with water than sodium. That's why it's important to cover the beaker to prevent.
Now see here, 2 points here we get from this video. One, how potassium react with water. You have seen here that how there is flame production or the production of some amount of heat. Now if you remember the reactivity series, potassium lies at the top of the series. Right, means it is the most reactive substance, most reactive metal. Clear? So it reacts with normal water and that reaction is very much violent. Clear? Now if you remember the reaction which was there in the video, the reaction was K plus H2O. The product was KOH
plus H2.
plus H2, means there is production of hydroxide with the release of hydrogen gas. Clear? And along with this KOH and H2, there is production of heat also. That's why it is a exothermic reaction. Clear? So you have to do remember, potassium react with normal water, that is cold water. Normal कहने का मतलब क्या? That is at the room temperature. So potassium react with cold water to give KOH plus H2 gas with the release of heat. Clear? Now let's see the
the potassium from bursting out of it and cause damage. Be careful while performing this experiment.
Again,
Avoid adding large pieces.
have a look on this point. Potassium reacts violently in water. This can cause the escaping hydrogen gas to catch fire. Now we have just seen in the reaction that along with potassium hydroxide, H2 is also released. Heat is releasing and along with that H2 is also released. Now it may be possible that H2 will escape out and that catches the fire again. Okay, and that creates a high explosion. Okay, so this is the reaction is very much with this we have to perform this reaction with utmost care. Okay.
Pieces of potassium to the water as the intense heat of the reaction causes the escaping hydrogen gas to catch fire.
Now let's have a look of reaction with sodium.
When sodium metal is gently dropped in cold water using a pair of tongs, it reacts vigorously, skidding over the surface of the water. Bubbles of hydrogen gas are liberated while sodium hydroxide solution is formed in the beaker. Cover the
See, there is similarity in the reaction of potassium with water and reaction of sodium with water. First similarity is both react with water in the same condition, that is with cold water. Second, both the reaction is highly exothermic because heat is released in that reaction. Clear? Here also we have the warning, sodium reacts violently when mixed with water. And you have seen the reaction earlier, that is Na plus H2O gives NaOH plus H2 plus heat energy. So sodium react with water to gives us sodium hydroxide with the release of hydrogen gas and heat energy. Let's continue.
the beaker after adding sodium. This will prevent it from exploding out of the beaker and cause damage. Also, avoid adding large pieces of sodium to the water as it will result in a larger explosion.
Understood? Now let's have a look on the reaction of calcium with water.
When calcium is added to cold water, it forms calcium hydroxide and hydrogen gas.
See, what is the reaction? Ca plus H2O gives CaOH whole twice plus H2 gas plus heat energy. Calcium also reacts with water in the same condition as potassium and sodium does, means with the cold water. And it reacts with normal water to gives us calcium hydroxide with the release of hydrogen gas. Okay, only difference is this reaction is not that much violent. Okay, heat energy is released in this reaction also, but that is not so much violent. Getting the point? Now you can observe some bubbles over here. Okay, this is the setup to show this reaction. So you can observe some bubbles over here. Now these bubbles which we can see, all these bubbles denotes that there is liberation of certain amount of what?
Yes.
Certain amount of gases. Right? Now these gases are H2 gas that we understood by the reaction. Now if we have to prove it practically, then how can we prove that this released gas is hydrogen? Yes?
We will bring the burning kettle near the test tube and release the gas that is regulated. When the gas that is produced during the reaction comes contact with the heat or the flame,
Yes.
it burns with pop sound.
Very good.
This pop sound indicates that the
Released gas is
hydrogen.
Very nice. Sit down. So this is a classical test for hydrogen gas. You have to do remember. whenever hydrogen gas burns in air, we'll have the production of pop sound. Okay, so what we do, we just put a burning candle near the mouth of the beaker or in which we are doing the experiment, and what will happen, that burning candle when come in contact with this hydrogen, that hydrogen starts burning and that burns with pop sound. Clear? Now see about the
Unlike
magnesium.
sodium and potassium, magnesium doesn't react vigorously with cold water. However, its reactivity increases when we use hot water or steam instead. Magnesium reacts with hot water to produce magnesium hydroxide and hydrogen gas.
So this is the reactivity of magnesium towards the water. Magnesium react with water, but condition is changed here. It do react with the cold water, but the reaction is very slow. Okay, to fasten the reaction, what we do? We just use the boiling water here. Okay, so we take magnesium in the test tube, we add water to it and we start heating it. After heating, we will get magnesium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. So magnesium hydroxide formed here means magnesium will react with the water, but the condition is different because it is less reactive than above 3 metals. Okay, now see about the
Iron usually does not react with hot or cold water. However, hot iron does react with steam to form tri-iron tetroxide of ferric oxide and hydrogen gas. This is a reversible reaction. So, after a point,
Now see here, again we have another condition, reaction of iron with steam. So again, means we have seen various reaction of metals with different conditions of water. Some metal react with cold water, some react with hot water. Now we have an example which react with steam. They neither react with cold or hot water, they have to react with steam, means water in the gaseous state. So this iron, when react with steam, it gives us Fe3O4 iron oxide with the release of hydrogen. Clear? Now let's see the copper. Let's see the video first.
the ferric oxide and hydrogen would in turn combine to form iron and steam. That is why, once equilibrium is reached, you will not observe any change occurring in the test tube.
This you have to do remember. This sign, this I have taught you in chapter 1. This sign is for the reversible reaction. Means we get the reactant back from the product if we change the condition. Right? So this is why this type of symbol is given over there. So we have to do remember, reaction of iron with steam is a reversible reaction to get iron 3 oxide. Now, how copper react with water? See,
Some
copper,
metals, such as copper, do not react with water at all, whether it is hot water, cold water, or steam.
not even copper, it is gold, silver, lead, all these metals do not react with water at any condition. Getting the point? So these things you have to do remember. We have several metals over here and we have to see that whether these metals react with the water or not. Okay? So we have seen the 2 reactions today, right? First we have seen reaction with oxygen, other reaction with water. So 2 properties of metal we have covered today. One is reaction with water and other is reaction with oxygen. Understood both the points?
Yes.
So be ready from these type of questions, all the reactions you have to do remember. Okay, now in the next class we'll continue with the next chemical properties of metals. Okay? Okay, thank you students.